Okay, so just like Matt said, what's really cool actually is that Matt just said that they're going to be raffling off a 4K action cam. So just getting right into my presentation, all about 4K, I'm going to show a video right now that was shot mostly with a 4K action cam. So it's like kind of a really cool lead-in. So let's check it out.
This is Apollo Control at 102 hours into the flight of Apollo.
People didn't always see that before. And he started rolling it, and they go, wow, that's kind of cool. And it got slower and slower, and it kind of goes into a hover. And he's still rolling, they never seen that. And then he popped in the clutch and went in reverse. And lo and behold, he gets lost in the smoke. They don't see him. And he keeps falling out of the sky, falling out of the sky.
Falcon, go. Ginseng, go. Econ, go. Surgeon, go. Retro, go. Final, go. Guidance, go. Control, go. Retro, go. Final, go. Guidance, go. Control, go.
He wins the gold medal, what do you think? Oh yeah, baby! Oh yeah, baby!
So those are a couple air show pilot friends of mine, and we shot that just a few months ago at the big air show in Oshkosh with the 4K action cam. And this is how it looked, just all rigged up on the airplane. You see I kind of taped up everything. I mean, there was a lot of aerodynamic forces on the camera, and I didn't want any kind of either movement or inadvertent button pushes or anything like that. And what was really cool, and as you saw, is that we were able to take audio from the airplane's intercom and poured it right into the action cam, so we were able to capture audio, which I think makes that really, really effective and cool. And also being 4K, what's also really cool is you can render out still images that are of sufficient resolution that you can actually publish them in a magazine. And I'll talk more about that coming up shortly. So, but we're here to talk today about the A7R2 and the A7S2. And I just came back literally 2 days ago from, I was in Mineral Wells, Texas, working on a feature film that we shot exclusively, the whole film on the A7R2 with the Leica Summicron cinema lenses. And we shot 4K. You know, what's really cool, this camera does 4K internal, but it also puts out through the HDMI 4K external. So we went into Shoguns, and we'll get into all that. But you know, what's amazing now, like this film that we just shot is coming out this coming April in theaters, or May maybe in theaters. And, but what we can do with these cameras now, the Sony legacy of all they've got with broadcast and the features, it's amazing what's possible. But as Matt mentioned, my background is in fashion, beauty, celebrity, just like this guy. And so this is actually, a couple months ago, I got my A7R2, and I set up some shoots, and these are some pictures from that. And I really, you know, even though they just came out with uncompressed RAW, these are all with the RAW before the firmware update, and I was just very, very happy with the file quality that I was getting in my images. And you know, really nice raw 42 megapixel files. And they convert, you know, as you can see, they convert really well to black and white, and just, you know, the bit depth, everything that I was getting was just really, really happy with it. And so, you know, I do a lot of fashion, you know, magazine stuff, and this was for a fashion magazine based out in LA. And what I mentioned, pulling 4K stills from a motion picture camera. So this was shot on one of Sony's digital cinema cameras, the Sony F55. So that's the kind of thing that they'll make a movie for a theater with. And I took this camera, and I'll show you the process in a little bit. I took this camera and I shot specifically for the magazine with it. And again, just some more celebrity stuff. Alison Brie from Mad Men, Jamie Presley, and Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell's also a pilot, so that's how I got to know him. And Patrick Dempsey. And we shot that on the set of Grey's Anatomy, and Jesse Metcalf, who I've worked with a few times. And one thing that really is special to me about rodeo is, and the A7 cameras, is that when I'm at the rodeo shooting my rodeo stuff, I don't like to have a big camera. So I'm able to get with my Sony Alpha cameras all the quality that I demand, but in a much smaller package, because these people are not used to big cameras being shoved in their face. So to just have a little bit of a smaller footprint really helps me get the moments that I want. So I just really, I really just love walking around the rodeo and just taking pictures and I get good access so I can get right up to the bucking shoots, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to show you now a video that I did at South by Southwest. That, oh wait, no, sorry, we're skipping ahead. So this is, I mentioned talking about the movie that we just shot in Texas. So that was shot in 4K. And this is the built camera, how we had it. So that is essentially, this camera has the motor drive on it, or the battery adapter. So that would be this camera without the battery adapter, this lens, but with all the support gear. So we had like a wireless follow focus in addition to a regular follow focus. We had 2 Adamus Shoguns on this rig. So we had one for the first assistant camera, and we had another Shogun that we were recording 4K to. So we had O'Connor matte box, O'Connor tripod, O'Connor, and back here, if you look, you can see that we had an Anton Bauer battery powering everything. So we had a plate here, and the dummy battery comes right up into the bottom of the camera, and with this battery, I'm getting 5 hours worth of power, so that's really good. And because with the small batteries that come with it, I mean, I can shoot an hour of video with the battery that's in here, but powering all that gear, it's just nice to have a different power solution. So what is 4K? Why did we choose on this film? That's an $18,000 lens. I just don't want it to fall. Why did we shoot 4K? What is 4K? Why is it relevant to what we're doing now? So 4K is 4 times the resolution of standard HD. So HD is what? It's 1920 by 1080. And so right here, 4K is 38, ultra high definition. There's 2 types of 4K. There's QFD, ultra high definition, which is 3840 by 2160, which is a 16 by 9. And then there's DCI, which is 4096 by 2160. So it's a little bit wider, and it's more what you're going to see in the cinema. But it really, but why is it relevant? Why do we want to be shooting 4K? What's really cool about these cameras is that the sensors in the cameras are optimized for 4K. And the A7R II, it's really interesting because with APS-C size capture on, or Super 35, it goes to a direct pixel readout. So when I'm shooting 4K with the A7R II, I'm using this part of the frame. I can use lenses like this that are calibrated, that they cover the Super 35 size sensor. It goes to a direct pixel readout, and that gives me the highest quality. On the A7S, same thing, but with full frame, which is really cool because of the way that the depth of field works. So the A7S is also awesome, obviously, with its low light capabilities. So on set, we were pushing, 3200, 6400 ISO, but still getting a really clean signal, really low noise, and that's really important for us. So, and again, part of that is because we have direct pixel readout. So 4K is the future, and the future is now because it's just become so much more affordable, accessible, and it's much more accessible to your home. So let's show South by Southwest now. I shot this at in Austin, Texas a few months ago. We did a 3-camera setup with Sony A7Ss going out to Shoguns. And let's talk more about that once we see it. So that video is playing across the US in Best Buys to sell TVs. But we shot that on the A7S version 1 in May of this year, or April, March, whenever it was. And like I said, it was 3 A7Ss, there were 3 of us shooting HDMI Out 4K. And you can see here's like one of the rigs that we were using. And you know, real simple on alpha glass, on E-mount. So this is the 7200. So this was our, you know, our tighter shot. We had three different cameras, one with the 7200, then 2 with 2470s that were giving, you know, a little bit more of a variation in focal lengths. And it worked out really well to where, like I said, Sony's using them in Best Buy across the US. So why 4K? Why do we want to be watching 4K? A, it looks great. I mean, I have done some 4K content, a lot of airplane stuff, for example, where, I mean, you can almost reach in and feel the airplane. It looks that clear, and the tactility almost that you feel. It's just a beautiful picture that you get. You know, you can future-proof your projects. Everything is going to higher resolutions. So HD is kind of where, you know, standard definition used to be, and everything is moving towards 4K. So, you know, in the future, the Jetsons, they're going to be watching 4K and above. But as a photographer or a director of photography or a cinematographer or whatever you are, the creative flexibility that 4K gives you is really going to pay off. So it gives you latitude for cropping. So all the creative flexibility. You can reframe, you can crop, you can zoom, you can stabilize. So there's a lot of things that you can do, which is really great. So for example, here's the full frame, and let's just go back. Cropped, zoom in. If you're going to deliver this in HD, you can go in on a tight like this from that and not lose any quality, and that's really cool. And then it just, the gradations, everything just looks better. The detail is sharper, everything just looks beautiful. And so, you know, back to that, if you're going to be doing any compositing, you just have that much, the edges are finer, you have just more information to work with. And that's a big deal too. And I mean, I got my 4K TV almost a year ago, and Sony's TVs are pretty fabulous, and they're just becoming more and more affordable, 4K televisions. So, like I mentioned really quickly earlier, there are 2 different ways to shoot 4K. You know, you have your internal, and you have your HDMI out. I saw that, Heather. And so, for the highest quality that I was demanding on set for the movie, we were going HDMI out, which gives us a better color space, into a Shogun, which gives us a really, really high bit rate, megabits per second. Like at ProRes HQ, we're talking about 880 megabits per second. The files are big, but you're really paying off in the image quality. And so now what Adamus has also, which is cool, is the Ninja Assassin, which is HDMI out. It's almost like, so for a camera like this, it's perfect because you don't need the SDI connections. You can go right into the Ninja Assassin with your HDMI, it's perfect. And I should mention too, one thing that's really cool is that these cameras, you see you have a record button here, you have time code. On the movie set, we were setting our time code to free run time of day. And with the record run selected in the menu of this camera, all we have to do is press record here, and the Shogun or Ninja Assassin will record automatically. It'll start recording automatically. So that's also really good. It saves on, you know, workload. And of course, there's internal recording because there's not always you're going to be able to have a separate monitor. You might want a smaller footprint. Now that we can record 4K internally, that's really also a wonderful thing. And like, for example, on the movie, what we did was recorded 4K internal, and we kept those as kind of proxy files, and we turned in the big files from the Shogun to the post house. So, you know, you can use the different files for different uses. So like I said, uncompressed coming out of the HDMI into the Shogun or whatever Adamus deck you're using, internal. And so some of the other features though that, again, as a filmmaker, help me do what I do easier and better. So you know, instead of maybe having a viewfinder, like a big separate viewfinder with focus peaking and zebra and all kinds of stuff that I want to see, we have a really sharp OLED EVF in the camera that gives me all of that. And and I should say, as a still photographer, I'm a manual focus, kind of old school kind of guy. So the fact that I can, and I prefer manual focus. So the fact that I have the sharpness and the contrast and everything that I need to precisely do what I want with the EVF, it's really great. So focus magnification is another thing. Like if you're doing an interview like I did here with Giada De Laurentiis, you know, the fact that I can zoom in and do a sharp test, you know, I can make sure everything is sharp. Then when I go back out to full frame, I know everything is going to be perfect. So, and then zebra, for example. So I want to know where my highlights are falling and where what my highlights are going to start clipping, for example. So when I'm shooting S-Log, like we were just doing on the movie in Texas, we had our zebra set to 95%, because with S-Log, we were able to go up to about 113% into the whites. So it gave us enough margin to know that the zebra point is still, there's still information there that we're going to be able to read. And that's a big deal. And then focus peaking 2 is a really nice feature that, again, that's what's really cool about Sony, is that this stuff is all trickling down from their high-end broadcast and cinema cameras. So now, you know, what used to be on a $100,000 or $50,000 cinema camera, you have in your, you know, $3,200 A7R2, which is pretty awesome. Or your $600 A6000. And another thing, you know, for the movie, we wanted to use these Leica cinema lenses. You know, the whole kit for 9 lenses is $160,000. So it's like one of the best lenses you could possibly put on any camera. So the fact that with the flexibility of the E-mount on the Sony cameras and the mirrorless design, we were able to put these, you know, amazing cinema lenses onto these cameras. But if you have Canon lenses or Nikon lenses or Zeiss lenses or contacts, whatever system that you might be migrating over from, I mean, I have Canon lenses for years that I use on these cameras. And my contacts, I have Contax G lenses, I have this TechArt adapter and I use that. So, and again, like I was just saying, the PL mount, again, the shot from, you know, from set, the 75mm lens just right here, you know, this is a wooden camera adapter on here, and it just, you know, it's a great solution. And like I was saying, S-Log 2 gives me, it's almost like the negative, you know, where I was using S-Log 2 to make sure that I get a low, you know, really good shadow detail, really good highlight detail, gives me the most dynamic range that I'm going to be getting. And this is also the color profile that you're going to want to match a cinema camera with. So, for example, F55, F5, Alexas. This is a great B cam now for cameras like that. Also, because of dynamic range, you have 14 stops of dynamic range. So, for example, tomorrow, Paranormal Activity 5 comes out. And they use the A7S to shoot low light scenes for that movie. And it matches perfectly. So I'm going to show some colorist videos, because when you're shooting S-Log, you're going to take it to a color. So it's like Photoshop. You can see everything starting to pop with each layer that it goes down. It's like Photoshop for video. And there's another one that's going to come up of Julianne Hough, and you're going to see things start popping and changing colors and everything. And this is what a colorist does. I take a file to him that's very desaturated and very low contrast. So anyway, the whole point of what I'm going to show you with this next video is that the first 10 seconds is going to be what it looks like coming out of the camera. And then it goes over to a color grade that the colorist put in.
Hey, Dad. Stay next to Grandpa.
So you see how it's desaturated, the colors are very muted, low contrast. Watch what's going to happen after a colorist gets a hold of it.
Hey, stand back.
It becomes really, really beautiful. And so keep in mind that we shot this with an aspect ratio of 2:3:5, So you're going to see black here and black here. The headroom is going to be much tighter. But the colors, it gives us all that dynamic range. That flat profile is like a negative that has all the information into it. And one thing I want to point out to you, you'll see some flare here. The light's getting low. We're shooting into the light. And so this was my shot. I was shooting that. And I'm just kind of standing there with the rig, just trying to figure out how to get the flare. And like, you know, this lens held the flare, and it really kind of translated beautifully. So lens choices really are a big deal for that kind of thing. So let's try to move forward, because I've got a few more minutes. This is a dynamic range demonstration that I want to show you. I shot half of this trailer, and let's show Ryder. The first half was shot with a camera by another company, and it has about 11 to 12 stop dynamic range. And this will show you what 12 stops versus 14 stops looks like. So you can see there's not a lot of detail in the darks. They're crushing down a little bit. You're losing the sky. Not a lot of detail here again. In the second half, where it goes to like slow motion, like a higher frame rate, you'll see how much more detail there is in the highlights and the shadows, and that's what dynamic range really is in the real world. So now this is my section right here, and so you'll see how it's just the detail in the sky, everything holds really well together. And you know, in the shadows, everything is just looking really rich. But the sky there's a lot of detail, everything, that's what dynamic range is. That's what these tools with the 14 stops of dynamic range allow you to achieve. So that's what's, you know, another thing that's really cool about these cameras is just the, again, it's just the quality and what's possible as a creative artist. So now we're going to just go into cinematography really quick. So what is cinematography? It's just what I was talking about before, taking a 4K motion file, and pulling stills from it specifically for a magazine. So let's move forward. I'm going to show you this. I did a camera test with this girl model Carly, and then I shot for the magazine. And this video is going to show you exactly how that went. So I'm talking with her. There's no click of the shutter. So when you're working with your model, you have to keep up a dialogue. So you're talking, and we just kind of did some funny eyebrow thing, but it's a constant dialogue that you're talking with your model. And now we're on set for the magazine, and I'm just rolling with the F55, you know, at 24, it's like a 24 frame per second motor drive. And here's a shot. Let me see, let me go back. Okay, well, we'll go forward. So here's a shot, it's very easy. You just render it out. You just take the, you know, it's like rendering any kind of still file. You take it out, you render it, goes right into Photoshop, you render it out as a still, and you know, here it is on set. This is what the camera setup looked like. So you can see here, I had what in cinema terms is a 45-degree shutter, but if you do the math, it's like 1/200th of a shutter speed of 1/200th of a second. Because a typical shutter speed for video would be a 50th or a 180-degree shutter. So it gives you motion blur, and that's what makes things look cinematic. But I wanted 45 or a 200th, because if we're going to be throwing hair, or if there's going to be movement, I still want sharpness. I don't want it to look cinematic, I want it to look like a photograph. But at the same time, it's a 24 frame per second motor drive, so I'm getting that exact moment that I want. So here I am working on the file in Photoshop, and you can see it's a 54 megabyte file. You know, I'm rendering it as a TIFF file, and then I'm outputting it, and this is the tear sheet in the magazine. And you couldn't distinguish it from any other photo in the magazine. It didn't look like it was from a cinema camera, it just looked like a pretty picture. And what's really cool now with the Premiere Pro is that at the arrow, all you have to do is hit a button, a little camera, and it'll render out a still at full resolution right from the file. So that's what's really cool about 4K also. So if anybody has any questions, I have really just a couple more minutes, and you know, be happy to address anything.
Did you ever use like animated, you know, like 3D animation, the live stuff like
I haven't. She's asked if I've ever used 3D animations with live action. I haven't done that, but I'm sure also, again, with the higher resolution of 4K, it's just going to be easier to make that, incorporation. Because like I said, with the finer detail, any kind of compositing works well. Oh, that I didn't do post on that. That was animated, but it wasn't a 3D animation per se. Yeah. Oh, the difference between the 4K and the R and the S. There really is no difference in the look because, yeah, they match perfectly. I mean, that's the thing, you can't tell. Once you render them out, you can't tell. They match perfectly. I mean, to the point where we have worked on projects where we were running, A7Ss, matching them to F55s or FS7s, or what's going on now, because we're able to shoot S-Log with all these different cameras. They're all matching up really well, so you can't really tell. And I should point out too that my colorist that I work with in Los Angeles works for a post house that they do a lot of network television, and the latitude that he has to work with the files, he compares to the top digital cinema cameras like the Alexa and the F55, F65. So it's really, really high quality now.
I'll get this gentleman back here.
Well, when you just showed at the end there where you're pulling stills from the video, still using the video still used for production?
Yes, but that's one of the cool things about that is that if you're shooting a video project for a client and they want to do some still ads or something like that, you can just pull the still right from the video, and it's it streamlines workflow, it streamlines the budget, because you don't have to have extra studio days for a still. You don't have to break the shoot into 2 different shoots, motion and still. So it's one shoot and you're getting 2 things, double bang for your buck. I can't hear you. No, it does. Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, that's kind of, what we were doing, there wasn't a lot of movement. So. But also, that wasn't being rendered to show as a motion project. So my priority was that it was going to be still, so I wanted that 200th.
Hi, Jeff. A question. Can you please explain me the pros and cons using...
I'm sorry, what?
Can you please explain me the pros and cons using Alpha?
Alpha
system with all this rigging and adds-on things comparing to just using 4K video camera.
I mean, if I'm understanding the question, it's why would I want to shoot 4K with Alpha versus a dedicated video camera? Well, the thing is, regardless of what I'm going to shoot, I'm going to add on things anyway. And for me, there's the video camera. I mean, it's really, I choose my camera for the mission. So when I have a project, I think about what my end use is and what my workflow is going to be, and I choose my camera for that. So sometimes I will choose a video camera, and sometimes I'll choose, like for this movie, we went with these because of the structure and the quality. So it really just depends on the project. But regardless of which camera I use, I'm always going to end up adding on accessories and rigs and all kinds of stuff like that. Is that answer? Is that what I? It's a similar solution. It's really it's mission, it's project, it's personal preference. There's a lot of variables that for each project it just depends.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Yep.